Most people hate conflicts because they think it's going to end badly for them. But what they don't realize is conflicts are actually an opportunity for everyone involved to walk away with a win-win-win outcome if it's approached in a very specific way. So in this short video, I'm going to go over 3 simple steps to approach conflict in a different way that will get you the outcomes you're looking for as well as everybody else. The first step is to identify whose problem it actually is. Now, this might sound a little funny, but not every conflict or every situation is a problem for everybody involved. Let's take a couple examples. So an obvious one might be you noticed a business partner, a client, or maybe an employee is stressed. They're maybe pursing their mouth or biting on a pen in a meeting. Something about them looks tense. They don't look settled. So there's a certain way to approach that because that's their problem, right? Or I should say they are having a problem. It's not necessarily your problem. And so you want to approach that in a certain way, which we're going to go into in a second. But that's very different than if you have a problem. So let's go through another example that might not seem as obvious. Let's say a partner, employee, client, coworker, they're showing up 5 minutes late every time there's a meeting. And especially if you're hosting a meeting, right? So the question is, whose problem is this? Is this your problem or is this their problem? Or is it both your problems? And most people might say, well, this is their problem, right? They're the ones showing up late. They're the ones causing an issue. So this is their problem. They have to fix it. What you might not realize, or a lot of people don't realize, is that person might not think they have a problem at all. Maybe they've been showing up 5 minutes late to half the arrangements in their life, their entire life. So they show up 5 minutes late all the time. It's never been a problem. So if you approach them in the same way, thinking they have the problem, now what actually happens, this is what happens in a lot of conflicts, and this is why people get frustrated. Now there's the situational the issue of them showing up late. And on top of that, there's a communication issue because you guys want to deal with it different ways. The reality is if someone else is showing up late, it's actually your problem. They think that that's acceptable, and that's why they're doing that behavior typically. And so you want to approach this in a very different way, and we're going to go into that right now, than if they have a problem. Okay, so we've identified whose problem is it. Now we can take specific approaches to get the best possible outcome in resolving this, right? So in the situation where someone client, coworker, partner is stressed, they're tense. How you want to approach this is 90% listening, 10% observational statements, right? You want to go in and just understand what's going on for them. Remember, they're having the problem, you don't know what the issue is, but it benefits you and your relationship with them to solve this. So you might see that they're tense and say something like, it looks like what we're talking about isn't sitting well with you. Or I'm sensing you're not quite happy with how things are. We're talking about everything right now. Some type of observation, very neutrally said, that addresses that you're aware that they're tense or they're not quite happy with things, inviting them to open up and explain things. They might say, yeah, you know what? I'm not really comfortable with, me taking the whole workload or whatever it is. So great. Now you know what the issue is. Now a bonus point for this active listening part is if you can identify a deeper value, something like in that example, your coworker or someone said, yeah, I'm just not comfortable with me taking on the whole workload. You can active listen again and say, sounds like you feel like you're going to be doing the load of the work and that might just overwhelm you. Yeah, exactly. I have other stuff going on and I'm really concerned about, doing all this. Okay, now this person feels heard and you can progress because you know exactly what the issue is. The issue wasn't that they disagree with the goals of the product, it was more the implementation that they have to take on more work than they feel they can handle given their schedule. Well, now knowing this, you guys can come up with a better solution. Now let's take the example where someone's coming in late to all the meetings, right? You want to approach this very differently. You want to start off with what's called an I message. An I message is where you start the sentence off basically focused on yourself. So you might say something like, when people come into the meetings late, I feel frustrated because it slows everything down for me and I feel like I'm not able to get everything in that I need to say and I have to rush. So I'd really appreciate it if everyone could come in on time when we set the meeting. Okay. That's putting the focus on you, and it's not blaming them for anything. You're saying, I need this from everybody. Here's what it's causing me, both emotionally and then also the impact. We're not going to get through all the things that I need. No one can argue or disagree with concrete impacts. And so one of the issues that comes up in conflicts is people actually kind of subtly, subconsciously blame the other person. Like, when you come in late, you make me feel this. Well, now you're tying that person to how you feel. And that's going to cause all sorts of issues. And you want to completely separate the two. Because again, this is your problem, not necessarily theirs. And so by starting with I messages, when XYZ happens, concrete thing, placing no blame, but just matter of fact, when someone shows up late, I feel, and then, frustrated, angry, upset, disrespected, I feel like the rules of the company are not being respected. And then the tangible impact. And I'm concerned that our culture is going to denigrate and people won't be performing at the level that I really want this company to perform at. When you say something like that, it's very logical. It makes sense. It shows that you care and you're thinking. You're also not placing blame, okay? So those two approaches, if someone else has the problem, you're active listening and offering observational statements. And then if you have the problem, you're using an I message to basically say, I have a problem, without placing any blame. I can't emphasize that enough. If someone else feels like they're being blamed or, you're making it their problem under the statements, they're not going to be as willing to work with you for those win-win outcomes. So now the third step is you want to get feedback and pivot. After you've approached your coworker, your partner, client, maybe significant other, whoever it is you have this issue with, issue that you're working with, obviously not necessarily them, but the situation ideally. You want to change the focus from, let's say in the stressed person situation, you want to change the focus from them to you, right? And so, they're stressed. You've identified that, in the situation, it was a coworker. They weren't comfortable with the amount of workload that was coming onto them because they have other stuff to do and that was causing them stress. Now you can say, I'd like to come up with a solution that you're comfortable with so that we can all move forward with enthusiasm and really excited about this project, because otherwise I'll be concerned that we're not giving it our best effort. So you've switched from they have the problem to now you're focusing on you and your goals, what you want, and now you guys can come together and figure out how do you both get your needs met. But the reason why they're going to be interested or even willing to listen to you in the first place is because you listened to them at a deeper level. You found out what was really going on. You took a moment to pause and observe them, see them, that they were not at their normal operating level, that something was pulling them down, like the way they were processing things. Now, because one, they have that kind of emotional load cleared, they're going to have more space in their head to think about solutions that you would like. But also, because you listen to them, a lot of times people will listen to you. They feel like relationships are two-way streets, and you listen to me, okay, I'll listen to you, let's work together. So that will help. Now, in the second situation where someone's coming in late, you have a problem, you've started with an I message, now you're going to turn the focus from you to them. You're going to pull them into the conversation and say, after hearing everything that I've said, I'd really like to understand how you're thinking and feeling about everything right now. Again, it's structured in an I message because, again, this is a problem that you want to solve. But by inviting them into the conversation, showing them that you've listened, that you want to listen to them, you'll get more feedback. And now you can go to active listening. and they might say something like, I didn't realize it was causing a problem. And you can reflect back and use it, 90% listening, 10% observational statement. Sounds like, you just have other things going on and you weren't really thinking that, this was causing negative effects. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Completely understand. And I really want to start these meetings on time with everybody so that way we can be a high performing company like I want. And then see what they say. Is that something that we can all agree to? And boom, that might be another problem. But you've very strategically explained your needs and then given them the opportunity to explain how that lands with them. And they can have a problem or they can say they agree. But in both situations, it's really important that you give the other person the opportunity to speak what's on their mind and what they're feeling. One, so they feel heard, and two, more tactically, so that they have mental space to listen to you and what you need, right? And then also, of course, when you're talking about your needs, it's really important to keep the focus on you and not make it kind of a covert statement of blame. That happens a lot. And I'll go into other videos. I'll do more videos on exactly how to avoid that, how to pinpoint that, because that's really important. So in summary, conflict happens all the time. And it's not because people have bad intentions. It's because people have different values and different goals in life and different thought processes about how to approach things. So because of those differences, people are going to bump into each other all the time. Those bumping intos can be completely innocent, and a lot of times they are. It's just differences of views of life. Those conflicts are opportunities for people to actually come closer together, get to know each other better, understand each other's values better, and get win-win outcomes much faster than the strife, the conflict, the headaches. That slows everything down. So real quick, one, identify whose problem it actually is. In these examples we went through, someone else has a problem and you have a problem. There's a third option, which is you both have a problem. And we'll get into another video how to deal with that. Okay, so stay tuned for that. But number one, identify who has the problem. Number two, based on that, approach it in a very specific way. If they have a problem, you want to actively listen. If you have a problem, you want to use very simple I messages stating that you have a problem. And then number three, you want to get feedback and pivot as necessary so that you can both get your needs met. I hope that helps and stay tuned for the next one.